So thank you so much, Superintendent Thompson. That was kind of hard to follow, but I'm hard to follow in terms of like so much content, but I hope that I can pick up where you sort of left off and make a good segue and transition into why this is so important and what it means to us as um, Free Methodist believers. So I'm going to talk a little bit about immigration and how we see it through the Free Methodist way. So, oh goodness, there we go. So what I'll be talking about, focusing on, is just a couple of biblical guidance. So we'll just touch on a couple of scriptures that were just brought up a couple minutes ago. The Free Methodist Way, our call to action, and then cultivating connection. And then there's just a little slide on where I found all this content, so you know that it's not just me, giving you a bunch of jargon. So the two scriptures that I'm going to focus on are Leviticus 19:33 through 34, which says, as to the foreigners, when a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt, and I am the Lord your God. And additionally, and this is sort of the founding verse that drives our principles of our beliefs in terms of Free Methodism, is the love-driven justice, and that is, and the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and prophets hang on these two commandments, and that's Matthew 22:39 through 40. So as was just said, there is a ton of biblical content that guides us back to how we should engage with foreigners. But these two verses speak really loudly to me, and I hope that I can make that clear why. So in terms of these two verses, the way that I have interpreted it is that we are to lead with love and kindness. We are to love those that we come in contact with, regardless of their nationality or their origin, and to seek kindness in all the ways that we engage with them, to also seek empathy and understanding. As was shared, we too were foreigners once, right? And so as we engage with folks in this manner of empathy, wanting to gain a better understanding of the injustices that are happening to them and around them in their place of origin, and even as they oftentimes are fleeing from those injustices, reach even more injustices, here in the United States with us. And so gaining that understanding, cultivating connection with them so that we can have that deeper understanding is just so vital. Treat them as you would want to be treated, right? Remembering, as we said, that we were once foreigners as well. Remembering that our life on this planet is only temporary, that we may be accepted in the places and spaces that we are currently because we are not foreigners here in the United States, but also gleaning and understanding from those experiences and their injustice, right? As we connect with them, getting a better understanding of the things that are not working for them, whether it in immigration policy, becoming a citizen and citizenship and what that looks like, and all of the other things that are associated to that, like healthcare and access to mental health services and access to all housing and all of the things, right? We may not have a good understanding of that, and so wanting to engage with them in a way that helps us to understand where they're coming from, and be able to advocate. Open space to grow in faith and our conviction related to that experience. And what I mean by that is just allowing ourselves to be broken for the folks that are experiencing that brokenness, right? Because even though we aren't experiencing it, they are, and they're our brothers and sisters in faith. And so if our hearts can be broken as theirs are, then maybe we can see things through their eyes and become better advocates. And in terms of the Free Methodist Way, these are they come straight from our book of discipline, and I'm just going to kind of read them and then hopefully give a synopsis in terms of what our policy is guiding us towards. We devote ourselves to our founders' deep convictions around the matters of injustice, as they took their stand against the evils of slavery, the oppression of the poor, the marginalization of women, and the abuse of power in the church. Our hearts for injustice continue and expand today, fueled by God's holy love for the unborn, the vulnerable, the oppressed, the marginalized, and the people of all races and ethnicities. Goes on to say issues surrounding immigration and refugees and modern slavery / human trafficking are globally are complex. They require solutions that both serve the vulnerable and the oppressed, and also challenge individual organizations and systems that create oppression and enslavement. These solutions include, but are not limited to, prayer, education, rescue, aftercare, proclamation, voting, protest, and an engaged discipleship that sees living justly as integral in spiritual community formation. As we minister to all immigrants and refugee, we do so with these basic underlying convictions. We commit to biblical principles, as we've previously discussed, of caring for the foreigner amongst us, regardless of racial or ethnic background, country of origin, or legal status. We commit to acting redemptively with love rather than fear, and reach out to meet the needs as we see them. We commit to identifying intolerance and work to end it, as well as ending any personal inclination to refer to individuals in less than loving terms. There, where there is conflict, it is our duty to oppose all unjust and harsh laws and to seek to change them. We commit to respond to this crisis in terms of the Great Commission, seeking to reach the lost, whoever they may be, ministering to all, caring for all, and showing God's grace to all people. And again, that's straight from our doctrine. And what I think this means to us in terms of our call to action is that we need to be supporting global mission work. You can find this on our Free Methodist page, the FMC USA, and you can see all the work that's going on. And why it's so important for us to support global mission work is because it sort of is where the rubber meets the road, right? We have immigrants here oftentimes because they're trying to escape the injustices that are happening in their location of origin, right? And so as we seek to support them in those locations, we can also seek to support them here in the US or wherever you might be. And so at some point, hopefully those two worlds will meet, right? And those injustices will no longer exist. But it's sort of have to go at it from both angles. And that brings me to advocacy, right? It says specifically about our voting, and there may be times of protest. I was so grateful when Superintendent Mark asked me to, research this and give this sort of little talk about immigration and our policy, because I've definitely been in organizations and I've been in within groups of folks that sort of talk out of both sides of their mouth, right? They say a lot of good things, but then when it comes down to the policies and their action, they don't always meet. And I was so grateful to be a part of this community and be able to read things like our book of discipline and know that it's not just things that I learned, that the things that I learned as a child in Bible study, in youth group, and all of those things match and mirror the things that we're called to do as adults, right? In terms of those advocacy and learning about things like pew taxes and the way that we came to be different and stand out. Not stand out against necessarily, but stand out amongst our Methodist brothers and sisters, is that we were not afraid to protest in those times, and we are still called to do that. I think standing in liminal spaces, challenging individuals and organizations and systems that create oppression and enslavement. Obviously, prayer is always the call to action, becoming more educated, and this may just be like higher education, but it could also just be self-education, right? The way that we grow when we put ourselves in community and we see things through the eyes of those around us, that we grow in our faith, that we can grow in our empathy, we can grow in our understanding. So I think that covers it all in terms of education. And then care, that us providing rescue and support and just supplying for the needs of those that are coming. And then discipleship. I just took a quick snapshot of this. I know that maybe you can pause it and you can take a picture of it, but it's just great tips. And this is on our Free Methodist website about how we can cultivate connection and engagement with folks as neighbors, right? Just reaching out, saying hello, taking the time to learn something about your neighbor, learning maybe even their language. I love that you open this time, Superintendent Mark, with speaking in a different language. And I think that says a lot about us as Free Methodists and just Christians in general when we take the time to engage in these other ways, in other languages, and in ways that are reaching the needs of those around us. And so some of the resources that are available to us, if you so choose, are the love-driven justice pamphlet, the engagement pamphlet I just showed you. And then there's also some information about legal resources and supports if you do find folks engaging in your communities back home that are needing legal support, so that are needing yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Needing representation, that's what I was going to say, and legal support. And this is sort of where I got all of my information, or a lot of my information. So if you want to take a picture of that and view any of those on your own time, you can do that.